For the last 20 or so years, I've had the great privilege of teaching metaphysics and pagan spirituality up and down the coast. I'm really lucky in that I've somehow turned thinking too much and then telling people about the results of my ruminations into something resembling a career. When you think too much, particularly about spirituality, you begin to see how different systems and forms of relationship impact each other. I've been grinding this one particular axe within paganism for a good decade or so at this point, and the axe in question is transactional spirituality. Capitalism as a system touches everything. I like to think of it like an invisible gas that we are all breathing, whether we are aware of it or not. And as with many invisible gases, this substance we're ingesting impacts our thoughts. Capitalist thinking turns situations and relationships, events, and more into commodities that have a monetary value and can be consumed or used indiscriminately. Spirituality is not protected from this mindset. While we're all trying to grow as people and find ways to mature spiritually, we're also still breathing this invisible gas of capitalism. I'd say the metaphysical world is unusually prone to some of the worst of this. Practitioners of metaphysics, often pagans, but not always, purchase beautiful crystals that we intend to use for healing, that were mined harmfully, ecologically, many thousands and thousands of miles from where we live, frequently by mine workers trying to survive working conditions that include terrible human rights violations. We burn incense that includes over-harvested or unsustainably sourced ingredients like frankincense, palo santo, white sage, and agarwood. Books and blogs within the last few years still sometimes encourage people to bury the remains of a spell, the spent candles and incense and assorted ingredients, without a thought for the microbiome in the soil or what introducing foreign substances might do to the surrounding fauna and flora. The metaphysical world is a good example, just because it can be so sort of extreme in its use of natural resources. However, transactional spirituality is not limited to those of pagan or other alternative faith paths. The commodification of spirituality is everywhere, and it's deeply reckless. Capitalist thinking goes further than the items we purchase. The word religion means observances we are careful to practice. Capitalist thinking poisons the heart of religious structures, and in too many places, religion is just another thing Western culture consumes. The mainstream form of religious practice in this country is that people sit and expect another person to give them their religion. The co-creative relationship between spiritual leaders and the communities they serve has metastasized into yet another consumer relationship. Yet more transactional spirituality. One party provides, one party pays to receive. The flow of connection passes from a person, usually in power, to those they have influence over, and there is generally precious little thought given to what the structure of transactional religion is doing to the faith in question. This form of hierarchical, consumptive religion is the worm in the apple of Western religious structures. A robust, healthy, balanced spiritual life is not consumption-based. It's relational. And like every good relationship, the flow of focus and energy is shared. Spirituality is not top-down or hierarchical. Healthy spirituality is a double helixed spiral, like our very DNA. It is a system that spirals inward and outward simultaneously. As it expands to connect while taking us deeper, it also extends upward like a spiral staircase. Spirituality at its best is a three-dimensional, moving, ascending journey inwards, outwards, and upwards. To develop co-creative, relationship-based spirituality, the next horizon is true lived animism. The understanding that the living beings we share our world with, the sacred structures of the earth itself, like mountains and oceans, and the natural phenomena around us are also inspirited. They are beings just as much as we are. They deserve the same considerations and respect we demand for ourselves. Humans are not the most important beings on this beautiful blue planet. We are one part of a spiritual polyculture. Religious pluralism is only the beginning of finding our place in the tapestry of existence. Like the double helix spiral of spirituality, we must reach outward while reaching inward and growing as just one of the threads of an infinite and infinitely beautiful universe. True animism changes everything. It is the antidote to transactional and hierarchical spirituality. When we focus on building respectful relationships with the beings and structures around us, our behavior transforms. Just as we plan for the allergies of dinner guests when we host our friends for a meal, we start to think about the needs and preferences of the beings we live near and work with. We begin thinking of the other species around us as potential friends and acting accordingly. We are less destructive, more considerate, more interested in finding a balance for our own lives in context with the world around us. Animism also changes spirituality on both surface and deep levels. One of the largest personal challenges in the United States that adults face is loneliness. That challenge is so profound that in 2023, the Surgeon General issued an advisory that described the amount of loneliness in this country as an epidemic. Like many multifaceted problems, spirituality does have a role to play in addressing this crisis. But if we're only experiencing spiritual connection in limited settings through an intermediary authority figure, we're missing out on so very much. One way I live my animism is how I perceive my own spiritual connection to the world around me. I was raised without much in the way of religious guidance. I sometimes joke I was raised by wolves, but the truth is mostly that I was raised by basically atheists. But it meant that I was able to develop a way of relating to the world that for me arose naturally. One technique I teach my own students of paganism is a visualization of the web of life and our place in it. So I'd like to try it now with all of you. I invite you to get comfortable in your chair and settle in, relax. Feel your feet on the earth if that feels good to you. Notice if there are any places in your body where you're holding tension. Consciously relax. If you're a jaw clencher like me, relax your jaw, turn your head from side to side, roll your shoulders. We all carry it whether we realize or not. Take a few deep breaths. Feel your body relaxing. And you can bring your eyes to a half gaze or close them or leave them open, whatever feels better. As you continue to breathe deeply, draw your awareness to your heart center. You may even be able to feel or sense your heart beating. Become aware of a soft glow radiating from your heart. A warm light that may pulse in time to your heartbeat or flicker like the flame of a candle. This glow is your life force, sometimes called prana, chi, or ki in other cultures. Become aware of the bright glow of life within you. Your heart center is part of a web of life extending in all directions. Become aware of the lines of energy connecting you to other life, to the other sparks and flickering candles that are those other lives. The lines stretch out everywhere, above, below, out to either side. These pathways hum with creation energy, the force of life itself. Allow some of the energy from the web to flow toward you. Let that life energy replenish your heart center. Then expand to heal and recharge any areas of your body that need it. Draw your hands to your heart, resting them on your chest. Feel your body incorporating that energy and returning to itself. Take a deep breath in, let it out on a sigh. Whenever you're ready, you can gently open your eyes if they're closed. So this way of feeling spiritual connection may be why I didn't resonate much with hierarchical religious structures when I was younger. I don't know when I started experiencing spiritual connection this way, but as far back as I can remember, I have felt my place within the web, deep in my heart, with a sense of light. If we are all points of light in a vast constellation that extends endlessly, the top-down forms of religion just don't fit very well. In the form of pagan practice, I encourage my students to do the visualization we all just did every day as part of their spiritual practice. And one of the things this way of approaching connection does is directly address loneliness. When we can feel all the other life around us pulsing in time and sending information back and forth through the interconnected web of life, we are truly not alone. All we have to do is remember to spiral into our hearts as we spiral out into the web. However, animism is not simply a matter of yet another visualization or contemplation practice. That puts us yet again into a place of passive receiving and the consumer approach to spirituality. An animistic spirituality is active. Just as we cultivate relationships with our friends through a cycle of giving and receiving time, energy, attention, and even physical gifts, we must begin to approach spiritual connection with the same considerations. This can feel overwhelming given the vast number of potential beings we interact with regularly. A good entry point to animism is to choose just one being to start with. Maybe there's a beautiful tree where you live, or maybe a stream you pass every day when you're out walking. Maybe you can see the mountains or a river from your window. Maybe you like to feed the local songbirds and already interact with them regularly. Choose a being or a small group of beings that you live near and see frequently. Then begin to open your spiritual connection to them. When you visualize the web of life, become aware of their point in the web as well as your own. Imagine sending them love and gratitude through the web, and then follow up on that sending in the physical world. If you've chosen a tree, sit with it for a while and offer it some water. If you've chosen a stream, grab a blanket and spend some time watching the water flow. Offer your attention and any gifts that might be helpful to the being you're connecting to. Pick up trash if you see any lying around. Over time, allow these moments of connection with the being you've selected to include deep listening. Do the best you can to settle your mind. Tune in to the sense of spiritual connection you've been cultivating and observe. It's amazing what we can learn when we simply sit and listen for a while. As it turns out, hugging trees is actually really solid advice. The double helix spiral of spirituality extends endlessly. There is no finish line or point at which one is done. Similar to walking a labyrinth, spirituality, when approached as a path, takes us closer to center and further toward our edges in turn. One of the things I love the most about Unitarian Universalism is our focus on learning. This is another technique to bring into deconstructing capitalist religious structures. When we choose a path of learning, we are moving from a transactional approach to religion and spirituality into a co-creative one. We are taking responsibility for and ownership of our own spiritual connection and the anchors that support it. We are choosing to climb that double helix spiral upward while cultivating connections that draw us closer to center and outward toward the world. Within wider pagan culture, there is an area of focus referred to as winter work. This is a course of study we select for the cooler and darker months. That course of study generally runs from the end of the pagan year on October 31st to the vernal equinox. As we round the bend toward true autumn, think about what you'd like to learn or develop within your own spiritual practice. Maybe you're interested in meditation or comparative theology. Maybe you're curious about religious history or the spiritual roots and stories of the land that we live on. My current area of study is pre-medieval and medieval era Icelandic folk magic. You can get really niche with your focus for winter work. Making the transition from approaching religion and spirituality as something we receive to something we do is one of the most powerful anti-capitalist actions we can take on a deep level. We can shift our experience of the numinous away from a theism that places spiritual connection into narrow times and situations that center on a hierarchical power structure. We can begin to connect to the very real spirituality flowing all around us at all times by cultivating an animistic approach to the world. As we live that connection, we learn to make better choices when it comes to finding a sustainable way to be in this world. We learn to honor all the other species and beings that call it home. We can choose a path of learning, taking our spiritual growth into our own hands by challenging ourselves to try on a new perspective, explore theological roots, or develop skills related to spiritual growth. Progressive religion truly has the capacity to change the world in meaningful and better ways. I'm one of those annoying true believers, which is why I've dedicated my life to the exploration and teaching of spirituality. I truly believe that progressive religious ideologies are fundamental in slowing the destruction of the Anthropocene, bringing sustainable peace to human cultures, and building societies that center justice, balance, and pluralism. I believe. And it all begins with us. It's time to get off the sidelines. Connect, learn, do. Spirituality is not a spectator sport.